What up, though? This is Yusef Bunchy Shakur here at the Mama Cool Community House in partnership with Detroit is Different. We're looking forward to bringing you 2022 State of Black Detroit. The haves versus the have-nots. The black middle class versus the black lower class. Is that such a thing? Is that a problem? Are we in an internal war with each other? Are we progressing? Have we digressed? These are questions that we have to ask ourselves. And that's what we plan on doing with this conversation as we get prepared for State of Black Detroit 2022, brought to you by Detroit is Different at the Mama Core Community House, featuring myself, Yusef Bunchy Shakur.
Detroit is different. Welcome back to the podcast studios, and we closing out 2022, but you already know it's definitely a lot of stories that need to be told, and the Detroit story even goes beyond the Detroit footprint, especially in my neighborhood. It touches into Highland Park. Highland Park is a city within a city. Detroit has two cities within the city, and one of them is definitely a city a stone's throw away from me. Like a bridge, walking distance. Yeah. I can look and see Highland Park for real, you know. And a brother that's now city council elected to Highland Park, but more so, it's another matter that kind of connected us, and we'll get into all of this. Khursheed, how are you doing today, my brother?
I'm doing pretty good, my brother. Life has been good, and it keeps getting better.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Too blessed to be stressed.
That's right.
Stretch Money says.
That's right.
And with that, city council. You're elected to Highland Park City Council. Congratulations.
Thank you for that.
What was the catalyst that led for you to want to be involved in the politics of Highland Park?
Well, you know, it's funny you should ask me that. You know, that takes us back to 2010.
2010.
Yeah, so in 2010, the council members who sat on council was Rodney Patrick, Chris Woodard, Norma Lewis. We had Titus McClary and Mamie Posey Moore. May God have mercy on her soul. She's passed away from cancer. So at that time, I was a young man. I was fresh in the city. I had only been here since 2000, so I was fresh in the city, and I was looking to acquire a house in which the city of Highland Park owned. So I went to the city. I jumped through all the hoops they asked me to jump through. I paid for the house. I paid for the fees and everything that needed to be done. I was told, now back then, how Highland Park did the selling of their property is they would enter into a contract with you where they wouldn't give you a clear deed until after they inspected to see what you did with the house and if you were going to keep your word about living in the house. So I got a contract from them to get started on the work, to fix the house, to get it ready. I redid the roof. I redid the windows. I redid the electrical that somebody had cut out the bottom of the house. I redid the plumbing, the flooring. I got everything ready for inspection, right? I even cleaned out the backyard of all the trees that it had in it.
Now, I do have this question, and I want you to continue the story, but basically in this deal, you could put possibly tens of thousands of dollars into a project of a property that you don't technically own.
That's right. Okay, that's right. Back then, yeah, you know, so in total, I spent a total of a little over $15,000 on this house. So on the day of my inspection, I'm waiting on the city to come out and inspect, and instead I get the Highland Park Police Department. Somebody, you know, called them and said that I had broken into this house and I was doing things in this house. So they came out. And then after they came out, HUD came out, okay? So basically, to cut a long story short, the city sold me a house in which they didn't own. They didn't own the house. HUD owned the house. The Housing Commission owned the house, okay? And anybody who is familiar with federal property, it's very hard to get them to sell anybody anything unless it's a development plan, okay? But a single home, HUD is not going to talk to you about it because they don't sell single homes, okay? So I'm going back and forth with the city about the money I put into it and what I paid them. I paid them $2,500 for the house on top of that. And we're going back and forth and back and forth. And I tried to do things civilly with the current council, but Titus McClary, Norma Jean Lewis, Chris Woodard, and Rodney Patrick basically told me no. The only person that stood up for me was Mamie Posey Moore. She was the only one on council who stood up for me and said that what we are doing to me is wrong and unjust, So come to find out, at one time, the city of Highland Park and HUD used to be one entity. Okay, the city used to handle all of HUD's properties in the city of Highland Park, but something happened, a rift or a split, whatever the case may be. HUD separated from the city, but they never divided up the property to make it clear who owned what on this particular list. So I happened to pick a house that I didn't know. It was listed as a Highland Park City house, but it actually belonged to the Housing Commission, which is HUD.
All right, now with that, that's a lot to drink in, man.
Yeah.
That's also like where a person would go. Our laws are so in favor of big business and property owners, but they'll always say, ignorance is no defense of the law.
That's right. That's true.
In this, so the natural question becomes, in that deal, like you didn't have what gave you the certainty to even move forward? You weren't feeling as though you were being exposed in this deal of investing so much into a property that you don't have the deed to. And then also with some of that work that you were having done, you talk about floors, and electrical plans. Sometimes they'll ask to see, hey, can let me inspect make sure that you're the rightful owner of this property. Right. And then sometimes, if you find the people that know the work, they'll, go around get it done. But you didn't have that.
To be truthful with you, I will say this. At that time, I was naive about the shape of the city and how dysfunctional it was. Because up until that time, I had no dealings with the city of Highland Park. I wasn't involved in anything. Okay, I wasn't an activist. I wasn't seeking office. I wasn't involved in anything. You know what I'm saying? So I trusted that at that time, I trusted the city was leading me down the right path. You know what I'm saying?
So when you say the city leading you down the right path, was it like a clerk who was the person that gave you the information saying, hey, this is a program we got where basically, you have 6 months or whatever, a time period of getting the house up to what we have as and this is interesting when you talk about inspection because it's layers of inspection.
That's right.
Inspection, because usually I'm used to before you buy a house, you have your inspection.
That's right.
But
that's true.
This is like a different type of program. Like, who was the person that presented this information to you about this home buying project or program?
Well, I had a friend who bought property from the city of Highland Park before.
Okay. And then, so you call your friend and it's like, hey, I think I want to get one of those cribs too. And then your friend is like, all right.
Right. So first he told me to go to the city and ask them for a list of all of their available properties. I did that. The list cost me $21. I paid it. Okay. I got the list. I went through the list. I went through every piece of property on the streets in which I desired to live on. And I found one that I thought was absolutely beautiful that I wanted.
Yeah.
That's the one that happened to own to the hood. I out of a list of over 4,000 houses, I had to pick the one house that belongs to the hood.
So then you go back to the city and like, hey, I want house number.
Yeah.
I want this house.
That's right.
I want 123.
That's right.
Highland Park Street.
That's right.
And they like, you know what? We'll sell you the house.
Yep.
It'll cost $2,500 to begin. So when you paid that $2,500, what did they give you in reference to?
They gave me a receipt for the $2,500.
Okay.
And then on top of that, they turned around and gave me a contract with the city seal and the signature of who at the time was the head of the real estate window. I forget his last name, but his first name was Robert. He was a white guy. He's no longer employed there now. He's moved on. But at the time, that's who it was, and it was his job to handle all sales of city property. Okay.
So so basically, it's almost like, okay, you go in with the money, you pay the money, and then you get a contract.
That's right.
And your thought process, because you're new to this, you're like, okay, you're not even thinking like deed or anything like that.
That's
you're
right.
thinking, okay, I'm going with what my friend says. My friend says just do business with the city.
That's right.
You're not even seeking, and this is a lesson for everybody. I'm
That's right.
walking Khursheed through these steps.
Yeah.
Just because it can happen to all of us. Like
That's right.
naivete and being taken advantage of is real.
That's right.
I think a lot of times we want to act as though we know everything, but we don't. So
exactly.
This is a classic example of I strongly urge, and it's tough to find them, but don't do real estate without a real estate attorney.
That's right. I agree with you.
So now, with that being said, you get this contract, and how is the contract? How is the contract explained to you?
Well,
of what you're signing.
Yeah, well, it explained that I had to remove all debris from the property, and that I had to remove any and all overgrowth in the front and the backyards.
Yeah.
That I had to secure the property with new doors and new windows. That I had to show them a good faith effort that I was going to do right with the property before they gave me the deed, and I had to have these things done in 60 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was this contract did it look like kind of, as they say, like a standard type contract where it's like, like a stack of these and you just put in the address?
Yeah.
And so almost like even the city didn't even go look at the property that
No,
you
they did
chose
not.
to select.
Exactly.
So that's one thing. The second thing is when I say how it was explained to you, did Robert give this to you, or was it like an administrator that works for him?
No. It was him personally who gave it to me.
And he handed it to you.
Yeah.
And what did he say when he handed this?
I'll tell you, he told me where to sign, and he told me what I needed to have done within those 60 days. And he now one thing that he did do that I must admit, he did come out like a week later and take pictures of the outside and add it into my contract so I could show the change from before and after. Okay, so that he did do.
And he did that one weekend?
Yeah.
So basically you had to move expeditiously.
Quickly. Yeah.
To get this done.
Yeah.
So it's like 7 days, you better, be out there cutting some bushes down.
That's right.
Putting some paint up on the wall
That's
or
right.
whatever.
That's right.
So you're in this space for working. Did you spend a night over there? Did you do any living over there?
I didn't do any living over there because I was told, and it was made clear to me that I couldn't occupy the space until I had the deed. But I could come over and fix on it, secure it, and get everything ready for inspection. But I couldn't actually stay in the property.
At that point, even with that, did you have any apprehension? Did that did you think this seems kind of,
I didn't consider that a red flag because I do understand. One thing I do understand is called liability. Okay, if something happens to me in that house and it's still under the city's ownership and possession, then they're liable.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do understand that, okay? You know what I'm saying? That made sense to me, okay? You know what I'm saying? But as I said, it was a learning experience. And when they curved me, the way they curved me and refused to give me my money back, I had two options. I could either sue, and basically I'm paying back myself because the city was cash-strapped as it is. It was going to come out of my tax dollars either way it went. So I'm paying myself, or I could get even.
Now, at that point, or at this point, and I want to, walk through this path because this is definitely one of those things where I'm sure, that's, what is that? 17,000. 500. Well,
at least
17,000. It's actually $17,521 in.
That's right.
Of an expense.
That's right.
That you incurred within a window of, I would say, you said 60 days. So
yeah.
Basically, almost like within a 2-month window. You come out of a good chunk of money, especially to buy a property at the time in Highland Park, which I believe that was like a Mayor Wyndham was
he was the mayor at the time. That's right.
And and in this fight, so in response, you know, this is like a heck of a learning experience.
That's
when
right.
when you get hit with this reality, and basically, you know, you get the police come and say, hey, what you doing? And I'm guessing maybe arrest you. At that point, you're like, no, I'm buying this house. I have my contract. I got everything. And is it the police officers or is it HUD? Who tells you need to talk to the city of Highland Park about this matter?
Right.
How do you know at this point that I need to go to city council?
First, the police officer showed up. Now, out of this tragedy, there are some funny moments, and I will share them with you for your viewers. So, you know, I look back on it now, and it was quite funny to me. So, first, the police showed. It was Officer Reed, and he's a pretty cool officer. You know what I'm saying? So me and him, we got along well. Then two more officers showed up. It was a man and a female, and the female officer was very nasty and rude and aggressive. So naturally, me being the sarcastic, cynical individual that I am,
basically the water found its level.
Right, exactly. So.
Which, and then let me say this to my viewers, just so that you know, especially if you're a black man, when water finds its level and a cop seems to aggress you, things usually never go in a path in a direction.
No, it never goes positive after that.
That I would say, you know, we've seen people lose their life, but the number one thing, like when I think cops and courts are involved, it's going to cost you time and it's going to cost you money.
Money, that's right. Okay. That's right. So she was, I mean, really nasty. I mean, really unprofessional, right? And I just happened to look her up and down. Now, this is an officer that is on the street, and she's twice my size, okay? And as you can see, I'm a big man, okay?
Yeah,
she's twice my size, and I couldn't help myself. I looked back at her. I said, you got a lot of nerve to be as nasty as you are to me, as big as your ass is out here, okay?
Well,
I told her, I said, I bet you if I broke out running right now, your fat ass couldn't catch me. Her partner laughed at her.
Now, with that being said,
her partner laughed.
Using profanity directly at a police officer is definitely something. I forget, it's like that Chris Rock skit where it's like things to not do when pulled over by the cops. Using profanity directly at the cops. You must have, as they say, your good bail money.
That's right.
At minimum. So this is so in this exchange. From there.
Yeah, from there it got a little bit heat after that.
I assume so.
Right. She didn't, she wasn't so much offended by what I said about it. She was really offended at the fact that her partner laughed. Okay, so while we are standing there going back and forth, and I'm showing my paperwork and showing that I have the right to be here to work on this house, HUD pulls up.
Okay.
Yeah, the chairman of the board for HUD pulled up because I guess somebody knew that the house was a HUD house and gave them a call.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, so at that point, when you say somebody, have you ever up to this point discovered who was the person that tipped off that, like, hey, somebody's over in this HUD?
No.
Because in my mind, someone had to have.
Yeah.
Okay. Now. So when
I never found that out.
When the HUD officer for, like, I guess that district or Highland Park shows up, the HUD officers demean what's said?
They're telling me that the city doesn't own this house, and that they want me to cease and desist entering this house and not to come back, and that I need to talk to the city about the mistakes that have been made. But this is a HUD house, and they're not selling it, and I can't have it, basically.
And this just happens to be like simultaneously as the police officers are there too.
Exactly.
and in this tense, you're cussing at cops.
That's right.
Back
That's
and
right.
forth. So like, this just happens all in the same frame of time.
Exactly.
And is this just you by yourself, or do you have your crew in there working?
Well, luckily at the time it was me by myself.
Okay.
Which I am grateful for because I had people on my crew and my family members that got a lot shorter temper than I got. I didn't feel like bailing anybody out. You know what I'm saying? But
one would
but
assume
for me,
if the person with the short temper
Right.
is using profanity towards police officers,
Right. Well,
you
see,
definitely don't want to see the person
one
with
thing
the
I've learned.
long.
Okay, so one thing I've learned, I've been alive on this earth a long time. I'm almost 50. I'm 48. One thing I've learned is limits, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to talk to police officers without crossing the limit, okay?
That was one of them times
Yeah,
you went past it.
yeah. And, well, I almost went over the line. If I would have said MF or F or something of that nature.
Think the other insult
No.
was past the line?
That was just right at the line. That was at the line, okay? I know the limits, okay?
That was past the line like ever.
As black people, we've learned to know the law better than any race in this country, okay? Because we're not allowed the luxury of being ignorant of the law. You know how they say that ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah.
They're referring to us as black people. Ignorance of the law for you is no excuse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So HUD officer shows up and says, "Hey, you need to get out." And then at that point, like, how is this situation resolved? What's your immediate response at that point? Because the HUD officer is the person that basically tells you you need to take this up with city council.
Exactly.
You need to take this up with city hall.
Exactly.
So is your response, all right, let's drive over to city hall together, or like what?
Actually, it's funny that you should say that because it happened just that way.
Okay.
It happened just that way. At the time, the chair for the Housing Commission was Kirk Swanson. We still remain friends now to this day.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And he was a pretty decent guy. You know what I'm saying?
Now you there. I assume you walk in and it's like, where's Robert at?
Yeah.
I assume that was what you.
He was
say.
nowhere to be found.
I would imagine that
He went
probably
home.
was. He
was
there that day.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Now, do you think that Robert? And I mean, this is all speculation in my mind with police showing up, the HUD officer showing up, and do you think Robert got the phone call that like, hey, stuff is going down with this one property that you
I think
just
that's
sold?
exactly what happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then with that, did the HUD officer mention that? Yeah, I know Robert, because I'm guessing they have to know one another.
He know him.
Okay.
He knew him well. Yeah.
So with that, you get over to city hall. Robert's not there. What happens?
We talked to the we talked to the clerk. We talked to the chief of police. We went back and forth, but the bottom line was I was out of my money and I was out of the house.
And I'm guessing a lot of them would be like, look,
Yeah.
that's between that Robert is the expert on this.
That's right.
I'm chief of police. I mean, I guess I can handle the matter of, what so, like certain matters, but this is out of my scope.
Exactly, it is.
So Robert needs to be present. So at that point, I'm sure you're definitely very anxious to wait to meet and connect back with Robert.
Yeah.
When does Robert? When do you connect back with him?
That opportunity never presented itself.
Wow.
That's when they started to stonewall me after that.
So you come back the next day like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Either give me my money back,
Yeah.
or work this out with HUD where I
It
get
was
my
a brick
grade.
wall. It became a brick wall from that point on. I talked to Mayor DeAndre Wyndham, and he assured me that he would fix the problem. He never did.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
and with this, and I want to, I just want to give a little bit other perspective. As much as we speak about these matters of which I think it was a false bankruptcy of the city of Detroit, but also the receivership of Highland Park.
That's right.
And many of the other cities were populated by black people. The revenue sharing of the state of Michigan, and if people don't understand revenue sharing, I know more about the Detroit story than the Highland Park story, but some of it I know from my friend David Alexander Bullock. But so you all understand this. When black people end up in leadership positions, it usually is you're going to be in a position of leadership with less resources. At
Absolutely.
best, maybe you're going to get 75% of what was there before, but sometimes you may be left with like about 30%. Highland Park is such a gem when we think about what it represents as, like, Model T Plaza. That was Highland Park. Like a lot of these cities in and around the area, they were designed specifically as almost like townships for who would be working in these industrial automotive manufacturing plants.
That's right.
Whether you work actually at one of the big four at one time, because American Motor.
Yeah.
Or you would work for a tier 1, 2, or 3 supplier. Like these communities were set up like with church.
That's right.
Factory.
That's right.
Schools.
Yes.
Stores to like keep you in these same footprints and pockets. Highland Park has dealt with so much divestment over the span of, I would say, decades, just due to the amount of black leadership that has been in position there.
That's right.
Now, with that being said, there definitely have been acts and some players of our own that have not necessarily advocated, I think, in best interest of the people. But even when that comes, like the comparable premise that leads to what we may look at as quote unquote corruption or theft or so many other things, especially when we think about what Highland Park represents, that is true. But really the culprit that we're really fighting against is, so much of the racism and systemic racism that exists in the state of Michigan itself. Exactly. So I want to give this long lens to say that at that point in time in 2010, Highland Park was dealing with so much of like, look at Solidarity, no street lights. People were having water bills up to like, people were having like $5,000 water bills. Highland Park was dealing with we just got our police force back because at one point in time the police and the fire weren't there. So like Highland Park itself was experiencing some crises that it had not experienced before in coming from this. Now, in the coming from this, when we think about the details, Highland Park did a lot of contractual, as we call it, like these private-public partnerships where you have contractors come in that used to serve as like, okay, this person was an employee of the city, but now you're a contractor of the city. So the difference between a contractor, like what I do with my with my work, meaning like if I'm contracted and I look to do contracts with different, like whether it be a government entity, a business, or whatever.
That's right.
But I'm not held to the same standard and the accountability.
That's right.
And that's why when we think about this public-private partnership money, things can be it opens many doors for a lack of service delivery because it's a different accountability.
That's right.
I mean, one of the things in Detroit, as we know, and now I would say like most of the region around here in Michigan, sanitation or trash disposal pickup is all outsourced. At one point in time, it was all insourced.
That's right.
So like, it's one of those things where I'm going to just call the city if my care doesn't get hooked up. Yeah, you can still call the ombudsman and reach out to the city, but it's still contracted into. So these erratic times of people like, oh man, they pick up my garbage sometimes at night. It's like, yeah, that may happen. They may miss
that was
a day.
the bleeding of the city.
That may happen too. And this and who monitors and the transparency. City council, for people to understand, city council is a legislative body that really controls the purse strings of how a municipality functions.
Absolutely.
Now, I gave that long window just to put this in a frame of reference to understand that something that could be looked at as like, I don't want to say minute, but without the detail that it needs to be paid attention to, these cracks in the system have direct impacts on people's lives.
That's right, every day.
So I just wanted to give that premise to say, so in this, you now realize, okay, I may need to take this up nobody's going to hear me. The body in government that you're going to hear, like municipal government, is city council, because city council has public meetings and things like that. It's tougher to get meetings with executives, mayors, or even people that work in the executive branch, because it's like our schedule and all of that. It's like city council usually will have standing meetings weekly or something like that. So now you find yourself in a position where I know they will listen to me, so let me present to city council.
That's right.
And that's where you're at.
That's right. And that's where we're at. So I'm going back and forth with city council. I'm getting nowhere. And at this particular point, my whole objective was to get even.
And really, when you say even, that kind of has like a nefarious perspective. Let's say you wanted justice.
Hold on a second. So,
you wanted justice.
So allow me to clarify. When I said that my objective at that point was to get even, it was. But once I got started, and once I realized how bad a shape the city of Highland Park was, from its administration to its legislative branch, how unorganized, how undisciplined, how they could have simply typed the address into the computer with Wayne County and found out who actually owned this particular piece of property before they took my money. Once I found out how all of these checks and balances were not being followed and nobody cared less about it and they were just doing their own thing, then my attitude changed, okay? Me getting even is not going to work here. We need an overhaul. This city needs an overhaul, and they have been running this city into the ground for 20 years. Rodney Patrick has been sitting on council for 20 years. He's the last one left from the council who were in power when Wyndham was in office. Everybody else is dead. Titus McCleary died. Norma Jean Lewis died. Mamie Posey Moore died. Chris Woodard, we campaigned so tough against him, he stopped running. Okay, so for 20 years, they have been running this city into the ground. Nothing is getting done. I ask the people all the time, is your life getting better or worse under their leadership? You keep voting them in. Is your life getting better or worse? Are we moving forward or are we moving backwards? And every year, we move backwards further and further and further away from the goal of where Highland Park should be. And you spoke about historically, anytime that black people are in leadership, we get less. This is true. Up until this current governor here, every governor that came to this state made sure that if it was a black municipality, they only got a portion of what every other city got. Okay, they've never done fair revenue sharing with any black municipalities. From Detroit to Hamtramck to Highland Park, we don't get what Macomb County and them get. Okay,
now, and when we say black, we don't necessarily mean a majority. We mean black leadership.
Right, exactly.
So because it's certain places where black people are, but aren't in leadership positions.
Exactly.
And it's like, hey, there we go. But when we think of
I should clarify. Anytime there are people of color, okay, they get less. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Hamtramck has a thriving community, and they're barely getting by because they get less of the revenue sharing than their neighbors. Yes. But when Hamtramck was an all Polish community, they got a full amount of revenue sharing from the state, okay? But we have a new governor in office now that's changing that. Gretchen Whitmer is really looking out for the whole of the state, okay? Because she likes where her credit rating is, and she wants this state to keep that level with the federal government. It's really good right now. So she's doing everything possible to help out every municipality that is struggling in this state, okay? I must admit that, okay? I was kind of doubtful about where she would be. I thought she may be like Granholm or Snyder, because we've had female governors before that have ran this state into the ground.
I would say just a Kari Frazier take. I mean, Governor Granholm's tenure in office as an executive, like many, I mean, through COVID, she's faced some interest. I mean, even, and I don't even know how much the FBI was involved with that. I mean, an attempt of assassination.
Yeah.
She's faced an interesting what she's dealt with. I mean,
Yeah.
dealing directly with the sitting U.S. president, calling her out.
Yeah.
It's been some interesting things as far as
Her
like when it
first
comes to
term
the
has been a
black,
little rough.
the black community.
Yeah.
I would say, I would say sometimes incomplete in my perspective. I mean, the water crisis that's happening in Benton Harbor, I
Yeah.
believe she's
Flint.
been very silent on. And then in responding to providing some solutions in Flint, it's been tough. As far as, engaging in a city like Detroit, it's kind of tough because our executive leadership that is not aligned like legacy Detroiters. We have a white mayor in the city of Detroit. It makes engagement in Detroit differently.
Yeah.
Now, I can say definitely, I can say that, people definitely, people have a lot of applaud Garland Nixon and somewhat the role he plays, and she does allow herself some availability and presence for that. But it's very tough because just it is any politician, and maybe even more so when you're a black politician,
Now,
advocating for people of color, but especially black people, is, that can be detrimental to staying in office.
Now, you brought up something that was very, very, very interesting about a majority black city having a white mayor.
Yeah.
I asked people, did they pay attention to that? So first, you got an emergency manager. And once they got everything that they wanted from the city of Detroit, then all of a sudden you had hundreds of millions of dollars that came out of nowhere, and you received a white mayor in return for that, because he didn't get on the ballot fairly and justly like everybody else. He didn't apply like everybody else. He was forced on the ballot by the courts. Okay, they forced him on us. Okay, and when they forced him on us, I knew that he was going to win. I knew it. I knew it just by how that court ruling went. They wanted a white mayor in this city. Okay, now all of a sudden, things are flowing and moving. There's money from everywhere all of a sudden, from the redevelopment of downtown to the redevelopment of Corktown to the redevelopment of Midtown to the redevelopment of Cass Quarter. I used to drive through Cass Quarter and I used to roll up my windows and lock my doors when I drove through Cass Quarter, okay? But now all of a sudden this city is flush with money and redevelopment from everywhere. I find that funny and interesting and strange.
Well, definitely. It's, I mean, as we know, you know what I'm saying? Caesar's going to look out for those, the Romans.
Exactly.
Now, so in this fight, as you recognize that, okay, you go from getting even to recognizing the justice that's needed there in Highland Park.
That's right.
This begins your journey, I assume, in activism.
Yeah, it
So in your journey in activism, how do you, I mean, what becomes your rallying cry? Because right now you're in the political seat.
That's right.
What was your thought process in activism? Was it to become an elected official at the time, or was it just to basically heighten the awareness of the people in Highland Park? What was your thought process? And then also the other question is, now because you don't have your home in Highland Park, how do you move forward? Do you still look for another home in Highland Park? Are you just disillusioned and like, I want to move altogether? Where's your thought process?
I still live in Highland Park. I live on Pilgrim Street. Luckily for me, I had multiple pieces of property in which I bought from family and friends when I came here. So I was looking for a bigger house to spread my growing family out into at the time.
Now I understand it. So you had a home.
Exactly.
And you were looking for this
a bigger home
to be
to spread
a
my
larger
family
home.
out into. That's right.
So you're still there and you're in Highland Park, and now this kind of like hits a light where it's like, wow, this is a lot of stuff where more justice is needed. So at that point, do you begin going to community meetings?
Right.
Like, what's the
So mind you, up until this point, I was in my own little Muslim world. Okay, I never dealt in politics. I wasn't concerned about it. It meant nothing to me. Okay, but after this experience here, it was like an eye opener. It was like a slap in the face. Okay, and I just couldn't sit still and let it go. You know, the man inside of me is just unable to be slapped in the face, and then I walk away from it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Tell you, you slapped me, and we're going to battle.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you
So-
said family, friends, and you
Yeah.
mentioned coming to.
Yeah.
Are your family from the Detroit area? Or
Actually, no. We moved here from Chicago, Illinois. Actually.
okay.
You know what I'm
Whereabouts
saying?
in Chicago? That's our brother's city.
We were on the north side.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and you know, I realized from this incident that something had to be done. Okay. Now it took me a little bit of time to get to the point I am now, because I've tried for many years to get the public to pay attention to what was going on. This time around, they paid attention. So not only do we have a whole new city council that I happen to be on, I mean, when I say whole new, there is nobody left from the old regime sitting on council, okay? We just had a recall at the rec center. No, I'm sorry, not a recall, a recount. Okay, we just had a recount, and the person who should have won, she didn't win. And when they recounted the votes, she was down by 14. They found the 14 votes that she was down by, and she got one more to beat out Councilman Rodney Patrick. So he's no longer on council.
What rec center and
Lord have mercy, it's my rec center, and I can't remember the name of it. But it's on Pickens Street.
Okay.
It's right. It's on Pickens and 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with this happening, you get to a point where you're like, okay, politically, I need to interface it more in the political realm
Exactly.
to heighten the awareness of the
Exactly.
people, because the activism realm is not
Exactly.
waking up the folks like I thought.
Exactly. But you know, I can't say that they were not an abundance of help. I met people like Marion Kramer. I met Linda G. Wheeler and the Wheeler family. I met people like Miko Williams. I mean, I can't tell you how big a help Miko Williams was and his Detroit Water Brigade. I mean, they were out there fighting for water rights in Detroit, just like we were fighting for it in Highland Park. Okay, and he was a big help to me. I mean, I've met wonderful people like Alexis Ramsey. Her information and insight into the political world really sharpened me up. And I'm very grateful for it, because if you see some of the old videos, I was a little rough around the edges. But as I grew, how to conduct myself in public grew along with me. You know, so I give thanks to a lot of people who helped me and shaped me to get me to this point, okay? But my determination not to give up just would not die. And I am grateful that I did not have the attitude, oh man, I'm tired of this, I'm just going to stop. No, I kept going.
All right, and you mentioned never give up.
Yeah.
And that's deep.
Never give up.
How did your family respond to your, like this, activism and getting involved in community work it takes time, it takes attention, it takes focus. It can be, even though you never gave up, it can be tiresome.
Yeah. They wanted me to let it go. They were worried about my safety and my well-being. I mean, when you start to ruffle feathers the way that I ruffled feathers, yeah, you become a target. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen it. I have watched them attempt to try to weaponize the city resources against me. Sending the cops to my home at all hours of the night, you know what I'm saying that they got a call of domestic violence, but everybody in the house is in the bed asleep. Yeah, just games like that. They played a lot of games with me, okay? Rodney Patrick and them, they tried their best to break me, and they never broke me, and never will.
All right, and this leads to where we connect. We connected to, and I've mentioned this before. There is right now in Highland Park, and it's a couple new developments coming, but one that impacts my community is the Means Logistical Park.
That's right.
Last summer, myself and about maybe 200 other residents over here on my side of the bridge in Detroit were sued connected to the building and development of this Means Logistical Park. So, I'm outside one day and I am, getting ready for a lot of studio outdoor festival, and it has to be like a white lady, like almost like late 50s, maybe early 60s. She walks up like, "Are you Kari Frazier?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she serves me. Now, I've been served before. I'm in business. So, like, getting sued is,
It's not new.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's a part of the rodeo. You know what I'm saying? But then I open and I'm looking and I'm like, this is related to our property. Like, how am I getting sued about my property? Now, the lawsuit, it shocked a lot of my neighbors. One woman had a stroke connected to this. Like, I mean, people have never dealt with any of these legal matters before. They're not in business. They're just people that own homes. You know what I'm saying? Or people that rent homes, or these people aren't used to things like this. Now, the lawsuit, as we found out, was it was many faceted, but for me in the footprint of properties that I own, it's about breaking deed restrictions. These deed restrictions were to change things in an alley easement, like new ways to like run different traffic up and down alleyways.
That's right.
And also it will break the community benefit ordinance of the Community Development Corporation here, Hope Village Revitalization, to stock and house a certain amount of liquor and also stock and house explosives. The explosives they're saying are fireworks, but you never know when you open that up. Now,
That's right.
this project, Means Logistical Park, was first being led through the developer, young brother Eric Means, that passed away. So when he passed, it kind of left this footprint in this project in limbo until, from the Cranes article, it says like his wife. Well, I'm saying it, I'm framing this the wrong way, but his wife stepped in and assumed his role with the other partners. Those other partners, Ashley Capital, Colliers, and there's many others. And you're gonna, if you watch all these interviews, you're gonna see so much more of what's going on with this in this story.
Yeah.
So in this lawsuit, it rocks us all. Many of my neighbors default. I was able to attain some support from, shout out to Sugar Law. Sugar Law represents people, a pro bono law firm for justice, and it just was so much on the docket. In this fight, a lot of my neighbors defaulted, but now we're looking at how we can negotiate what type of community benefits agreement with Hope Village and others. Like, we want to not be ran rickshaw. As the example I often use is, this is like sports. Like sometimes, and one of my favorite sports is boxing. And sometimes a boxer will throw a jab, not necessarily to connect, but to just see how another boxer responds. I believe that the lawsuit was a jab, just to see how awake and how we will respond to something, because that will further decide, if other developments need to happen over here or there or whatever. Can we run, truck traffic through, even though this naturally will impact our quality of life. And it impacts not
They're
just
trying to see how far they can go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
basically.
And this Means Logistical Park was built upon what now I'm learning through Detroit People's Platform was brownfield development.
That's
Brownfield development is direct government money to basically look at, spaces can be evaluated to say, nothing can be done here. So if you're a developer willing to do something here, we will match dollar for dollar, meaning that like, it's not like they give you $10 million, but what happens is basically you're given that almost, it's kind of like the deal you had in buying a house, but this is on a larger scale from, what's funny, this is federal government money.
That's right.
The Brownfield Fund was started in Highland Park for this project. So meaning Highland Park did not have a brownfield fund before this project. This is unprecedented at the time. So this project starts that. But a brownfield space, as I'm learning more about this, so it's a lot of things happening. As my residency in the Detroit is Different space and a lot of studio space are now rezoned from residential to mixed use industrial. Also, you break these deed restrictions and it's rezoned, and then our brownfield is there. We already, just being around a bunch of black people, it makes insurance tougher. Meaning, like, insuring your home, you can only insure up to this much because they're basically saying that like you're obviously like blocks away from property that's condemned.
That's right.
Almost. That's one. Two, it impacts our car insurance because it's that same response. Three, if you ever want to sell the property, obviously your property value has sunken in this mix too. And then also, if you ever wanted to lend against your home, if you wanted to refinance, you want to, you have a credit union account and all that. All of this happens in one act by this development coming into our community. And I feel like not being equitable, not entering our community with the culture and the standard and respect that they should have. They came in a violent act.
That's right.
As far as I'm concerned, these are
acts of aggression.
An economic violent act is the lawsuit because that's how business people get violent with each other. We don't sue each other and everything like that.
That's right.
So it already shows, as far as I'm concerned, they're acting in bad faith. Connected to this, we held closing out October, we held a community meeting, and I had some door hangers, and I posted them in and around the footprint of these properties. And one property stands out. Everybody, as they say, the greenhouse, Mr. Marvin Elliott's house.
That's right.
So Marvin Elliott, I make sure that I deliver one there, and Marvin shows up to our meeting, and we enlighten him with the information and research that I found. Shout out to Detroit People's Platform, and also just like digging deep myself, and from there looking more into the dockets and my research and finding out even further research about this. We arm Mr. Elliott with info. Mr. Elliott says, "Hey," he calls me one day. He got a deep voice and everything. He's like, "Kari, it's his brother Khursheed that I think you need to connect with him because he's finding out some information." I'm like, "All right, I'll call him." We talk, and that's how we connect.
That's right.
Khursheed lets me know that it's going to be I believe a zoning commission meeting for Highland Park because a part of this project, you had two big holdouts in the footprint of this space. You had Mr. Elliott's space and then also a liquor store space.
That's right.
That liquor store space for a while was holding out, but eventually sold.
He sold.
And with that sale, I believe he'll have a property across the street where he's gonna rebuild, possibly. Now, whether it does or whether it doesn't, now the space of the liquor store needs to be rezoned. We attended this rezoning meeting, and even as it was explicit, so people can understand as you're gonna watch some clips from that meeting and all of that stuff, like the framework of this, as we know, when you walk into any of these institutional systems, especially court, you can't, in your mind, it's like, hey, I was driving 55. You can't say a statement like that in court. I guess you can, but it's not going to be on record like that. Because these systems function in a certain way where you even to speak to a judge, it needs to be framed in the right reference. One of the things about a zoning commission and the influence that you have is basically it was reiterated that, look, just cause for not moving forward with a vote in a zoning commission is really the only just cause should be that the mandates of whatever the space are not up to par.
That's right.
But when we led public comment, definitely opening up from a fiery response from you, Jeff Jones of Hope Village Revitalizations. I forget the sister that came in there with you, but she was big in there. And then I gave a couple. Alexis Ramsey. I spoke and I gave a couple comments as well. It influenced the commission to the point where they abstained from voting, which, as far as I'm concerned, that was a community victory. It's not necessarily, we're not in the street dancing yet, but it at least gives time.
That's right. It's not over. Yeah.
To reassess, and as we know, actually, Mr. Elliott it's another hearing about this matter the 16th of December that will be going on with the U.S. Circuit Court, and many of the players still named. Like I say, this is a big project. DTE is being sued, City of Detroit, City of Highland Park, Xfinity, AT&T, Hope Village Revitalization, and many residents are named in this. So it's many parties, and it's series of dockets. So this isn't like a let's sue these three people. It's like a let's sue this whole neighborhood.
That's right.
Which is definitely not acting, and that's my key point. It's not acting in good faith, where now it's like we have to look at everything you say.
That's
And
right.
I even mentioned this in the meeting
right.
when I was speaking to the economic development consultant and advisor, Tyrone Hinton, who's not necessarily an employee of Highland Park, but he's traveled around Southeast Michigan, but he was in a position where I said, like, this is like fruit of the poisonous tree. And that's
right.
one of those legal terms, as they say.
right.
Meaning that, like, if you lied on our former president, will be looked at like this. If you lied on Monday, you lied on Tuesday, you lied on Wednesday, then assumptions can be made that probably on Thursday, you ain't about to be telling the truth.
And Saturday.
Exactly. Right now, this development has served as bad actors.
Right.
Some of the things that Mr. Elliott has dealt with more so than most, it's been like a head-on, like tear-down assault of what's happening. So I give that long introduction to say, I meet you in this project.
That's right.
What's your connection to this project? Was it just connecting to the advocacy and the activism that you were already active in doing, and then this is running concurrent with you also campaigning politically and other things? So how do you connect with this project?
Exactly. So all of this came across my table the moment I got sworn in. Okay, so the moment I got sworn in. So me and Mr. Elliott, we share a common friend.
Okay.
A very good friend.
Okay.
And her, her name is Miss Yago. We share a very good friend, and she called me after I was sworn in to tell me about Mr. Elliott.
And this is interesting about public service. It's like you don't even get 2 seconds.
No,
it's like, hey.
No 2 seconds, no nothing. Okay, my phone has not stopped ringing since the county certified the election. My phone has stopped ringing. I'm sitting here now and it's ringing like crazy. Okay,
and it's unique because you can empathize with this just from going back in time to 2010.
That's right.
What you dealt with, and you feeling as though you only had one member, which one is better than none.
That's
but
right.
still, it's very shocking sometimes to find that, like, damn, I'm a taxpayer. I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know what to do. You know, it leaves people in a position of, like, just fear, anxiety,
That's right.
and not doing anything
That's
because they're confused. They don't even know where to turn for help.
That's right. So although Miss Moore fought extremely hard for me when I was in this exact same
position
spot,
in certain ways.
I fight a little bit harder. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little bit more rougher. I'm a little bit more rawer. I let the memes group know that I have no problem with you coming in here and making money. I have no problem with you coming in here and doing development. But when you come in here right. You don't get to stand on the necks of Highland Park residents while you climb and make your millions. It doesn't work that way. You would show the same respect that you would if you was out in Macomb County, because I guarantee you that you wouldn't have pulled this out there. But they think that we're nobody because we're so desperate for this and desperate for that, and we don't have this and we don't have that they can just come in here with their millions and push people around and get away with it. And it's unacceptable.
And I want to give a counterpoint to that, because usually a lot of this quote-unquote public money, whether it be from a municipality, the state, or the federal government, or agency of the federal government, the thought process is it will spur economic growth.
That's right.
Like the whole trickle-down economics, which clearly never has worked.
It never works.
But the idea is always, y'all need jobs. That's usually the jobs is usually the number one title, which led to me asking Mr. Elliott, I'm like, hey man, that's right outside your door. How many black people have you seen working on these construction crews? He said
not a
2.
one. I ain't seen not a one.
So these are the things
more than
that,
me.
So these are the things that we always wonder with these jobs that say they're coming here that circumvent where things go. And Mr. Elliott even said, like, hey, I got a cousin that hauls soil, like has a truck, and he's in that business. Collier's Group, another one of the partners in this, Ashley Capital Collier's Group, in this development, even though, like I say, front-facing is the Means name, and Means is widowed spouse. Like, so you see the black face in front, but in reality, it's a lot of white money behind this project.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Using a lot of Here we go. Now I'm going real deep.
Well,
Opportunity zone, hub zone, opportunity zone, zone, hub zone, meaning like using a lot of money you can get by basically being associated with a black partner to acquire more government subsidies, more government tax abatements, more government resources, basically by being associated with a black partner and basically doing what you want to do.
Okay.
So
Now I don't know how true this is. I try not to listen to rumors.
Yeah.
But I'm being told that the widow has actually opted out of the company. She's sold her shares in this particular company, and the principal is Ashley Capital.
And see, sometimes when deals are that close, I'm unsure that it's rumor, but things like that happen.
Yeah.
But we're definitely speaking on opinion. Hey, Detroit is different as a place where, you know, Kari, I believe all of this media is propaganda. Research and find out for yourself.
Yeah.
And through these exchanges, you can, challenge us if you can challenge us.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
and for me, I want to get up on game. It's a lot of times where I get smacked in the head. You know, my last debate with Kofi about Kofi Kenyatta, shout out Kofi, about reparations and how it can place forth. And I still sort of feel the same, but I do understand in the premise that, like, quote unquote, certain things, check your Detroit is different to get that.
That's
where
right.
Kari get chin checked a little bit. So with this being said, your role in this fight is really advocating for us as people, not necessarily even it's like no vested interest. You didn't have any property, and what we're also finding out, what Mr. Elliott said, is some of his neighbors were Eric Means negotiated like deals for much more than what was really given to these people, and you couldn't find an equivalent property, because this is why Mr. Elliott will not move. He has a large 2-family flat.
That's right.
Rich stock too.
That's right.
So what they're giving him is basically the equivalency, and this is another one of those things where property values matter. We're giving you above your property value as it's listed and appraised.
Yeah.
So you should be happy, but he can't get the amount of space that he has.
That's right.
For the amount of money they're giving
him. That's right. That's right. So yeah, you know, I will say this, and I will stand by this, and I've said it numerous times before. When I agreed to take this job, when I swore my oath of office, I knew from that point on, I was no longer Khursheed, the individual. I was Khursheed, the public servant. Okay, I belong to you. I represent you, and I'm never going to forget the fact that you put me here and you entrusted me to safeguard your well-being, okay? I'm not for sale. I don't care what you're offering. I'm not interested in your parties and your friends. When you come to the city of Highland Park, you will be treated like everybody else in the city of Highland Park is treated. If you want special treatment, you need to take your ass out there to Macomb County or something, because here in Highland Park, you will get the same treatment that any other resident gets. I believe in equal opportunity. I believe in fair play. I don't like when the city is used against the residents as a weapon, and I don't like, I hate favors. I despise favors, okay? I've seen how favors are done, and I see what comes out of favors, okay? I want this city to run where everybody who comes to City Hall is expecting the same treatment no matter what. If I give you a cup of coffee, I'm going to give everybody in this room a cup of coffee. You're not going to be the only one sitting there drinking coffee. If I open an opportunity for you to function, I'm going to give everybody in this room the same opportunity I gave you to function and make something in the city of Highland Park. I don't care what's going on. And if that means that puts my well-being and my life in jeopardy, then so be it. But as long as I'm sitting on that council, any council member I catch attempting to do a favor, I kid you not, as a law is my witness, I will turn their ass in to the AG. And I mean just what I said. I stand by that wholeheartedly. No favors here. You want favors, go to another city. Here, you will function as the law says you have to function. You will get the benefits that the law says you have to get, and that is as far as it's going to go. You get nothing extra here. If you want cream, as they say, I suggest you go somewhere else, because I'm fresh out of freaking cream here.
So,
and for the next 4 years, this is going to be a cream-free city as far as I'm concerned.
So with that being said, like in a matter like this, and it does intersect in, I mean, you know, fights like this are, you know, I mean, even your personal fight, but like when it gets more engaged with more layers, with more people, and it's millions of dollars that have gone into this. This space is
That's right.
has begun construction, and I believe, you know, it's slated to open in the spring.
Yep.
What's,
They're almost finished with it. Yeah.
yeah. What's your take as far as like, you know, what do you feel like can be done? And it's going to be more projects like this, and it definitely puts you in a position where, you know, it you know, you sometimes given some inconveniences, the people with a lot of money can be a bigger inconvenience to you eventually.
Exactly.
So what do you see? What do you see in this public service of this, like taking on fights like this?
I see the memes group honoring the agreements in which Eric Means made. I want the people who have not been paid in full to be paid in full. I want Mr. Elliott to be given a fair deal that him and his brother and sister could probably split evenly if they have to go to probate court, because it looks like that's where it might end up going. Okay, because all of a sudden they pop out of the woodworks. All of a sudden, you know. And this is a problem with not leaving a clear and decisive will or trust for black people. If you want to make sure that the people you want to have something needs to have something, then leave a will, leave a trust. Look out for your loved ones. Okay, so there's no arguing and no fighting, because all of a sudden this brother and sister have popped up out of the woodwork to claim their particular share.
Yeah.
Okay, but his father clearly left the house to him.
Yeah, I mean, death can be a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, as we know, and
it
then
can be a lot.
Even when you have a will, making sure, you know, you have an affidavit, it's
That's right.
notarized.
That's right.
And then even submitted on record the right way. I mean, I'm one to say even go video. Like, it's a lot of, like, this is just maybe, tin foil goofy, as they say. A little bit about even, like, a lot of artists and stars. Like, we look at a guy like Prince that was so masterful in not just music, but the way he approached business.
That's
and for
right.
me to believe, wow, Prince didn't have a will.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
masterful
The same
in
thing.
business and music, no
The
will.
will. It's
Aretha
weird, right?
Franklin, Aretha Franklin was so real.
Yeah.
It's like, you
Yeah.
paying me in cash.
Yeah.
Where she had cash counters, like straight up. Masterful in business and music, don't have a will. You know, Whitney Houston, another one. Like,
Same
it's
thing.
like, wow. It's like sometimes even when you have it, you have to have other precautions that come in place, because some of this, I believe that these people aren't just walking around without one. But if you have one, make sure it's up to date, make sure it's kept in record, make sure it's shared well. Like, this is becoming.
It comes from us. It comes from us thinking that we're not going to go anywhere. Oh, I'll be here. I'll take care of it. I'll deal with it later. No, deal with it now. Don't put off something so important. And I will say this, the safest way and the easiest way without going through probate court to pass on to your heirs what you want them to have is a family trust. Problem solved. Everybody who is going to benefit from the trust is listed in the trust, and what they get is listed in the trust.
Yeah.
I'll give credit where credit is due. Our former president, he said one good thing. He said, "Own nothing, but control everything." Now, if you look at him, he's flat broke. He's got no money.
Yeah.
All his money is tied up in his family trust and his charitable organizations, which he solely controls.
Yeah.
And he may do as he see fit with, how he has them set up. So own nothing, control everything. He's even lawsuit proof. You can't sue him and get nothing from him because he's got nothing. His trust has it.
Yeah, I mean, when we think about the savviness of one thing Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is
he's very savvy.
When it comes to
savvy.
that's his world and
That's
those
his world.
institutions for
That's
years.
right.
I mean, he fleeced the casino
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
you
And
know,
how do you lose
from
money with a
Atlantic City.
casino? How do you lose money with a casino?
Hey, he
How does a casino go bankrupt? How does that happen?
He fleeced the
Okay.
casino from
I tell you,
casino from Atlantic City.
The casino's whole job is to make money.
Hey. So
Okay. Anyway, anywho.
so with that being said, I mean, as we get closer to a close here, in this discussion, and I'm definitely gonna welcome you back because this will be a story that Detroit is different. Obviously, will follow as it hits what we do here at Detroit is different.
That's right.
I would say as you step in office, I'm sure you're gonna engage and things like that. How will you engage with the legal department of Highland Park? How will you engage with the players to even bring in? And sometimes, let's not even say everything is like nefarious. Sometimes it just may be like it's like exercising. Like things can atrophy. If one administration and political official is like, all right, let's focus on trying to get these roads straight and get some businesses here, and then somebody else says, all right, let's shift and let's focus on representing residents that may be imposed upon this development. Like that takes a shift. How are you going to onboard even the Highland Park workers, the administration, City Hall, to be more resident focused?
That's right. Okay. So a big problem for Highland Parkers is information. I mean, we've been fed so much false information for so long, half of the residents really don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And this is a pretty smart move if you want to be a corrupt bastard, of course. The more ignorant people that you have in the city, the easier it is to do what you got to do, right? Okay. So my objective moving forward is to keep the residents informed. I mean, we used to be so well informed. We used to have our city hall on cable TV. We used to send out notices weeks in advance when there was a public meeting, door to door. Everybody used to know what was happening, when it was happening, how it was happening. But since Wyndham, the city has literally come to a standstill on information. Nobody knows nothing. And all we're dealing with is rumors and conjecture. They have never put back, ever since they got Yop out the first time, they dismantled. The first thing that they dismantled was they stopped showing City Hall on cable TV. The meetings gone, okay? The next thing they did, public notices didn't go out until a couple of days before the meetings, okay? And then they would schedule meetings in crazy hours, whereas most of the citizens were either at work or in the bed sleep. You know what I'm saying? Because they had to get up for work the next day. So my job is to make the city accessible to the residents. I don't care what we have to do to make this city accessible. I want them to know what's going on, when it's going on, where it's going on, how it's going on, and why it's going on. Wow. You have a right to know what's going on in your name. And as an elected official, it is my job to let them know what I'm doing in their name, okay? I don't have power. I have been given power to wield on the behalf of the residents of Highland Park. I don't hold no damn power. They hold the power. And I'm going to do as they ask me to do.
That's deep.
I will never deviate from that, okay? If they don't want something, then so be it. Even if I try my best to convince them this is the better route. If they tell me, no, we don't want to go that route, I have to go the way that the residents want me to go. I work for them. Even though I may disagree with it. That's what politics is all about. And we have forgotten that, okay? We're no longer hollering, we the people. It's now the government and Uncle Sam. Okay, or in our case, Mr. Charlie,
Hilarious.
Yeah, but yeah, we have forgotten that message, and it's my job to bring that message back. Okay, Highland Parkers have a right to know what's being done in their name and in their honor, and I'm gonna make sure that they get to know that. So I'm going to do whatever I can to get the information out to them, and my citizens are going to be well informed about what's going on and what options we have to move this city forward. both good and bad. But they have to make the choices. I can't make them choices for them. It's my job to make the choices they want me to make.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
I tell you, I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.